Hello everybody, my name is Samantha Fahy and I am the Sustainability Manager at Dublin City University in Ireland. And firstly, I would like to extend my thanks and the thanks of my President, Professor Dara Keogh, to the organising committee for this very kind invitation to speak at this conference here today. So I'm going to speak about the DCU setting and the continuing challenges post-COVID. So that I will start with an overview of our university, cover some of the impacts of COVID, and then highlight some of our post-COVID challenges, in particular, how we are seeking to meet the national legislation that has recently been set to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions to zero by 2050. And this comes with a 51% absolute reduction in GHG emissions within the next 8 years to 2030. So a little overview of Dublin City University. So we are a relatively young university, established in 1980. We run a comprehensive range of programs across our 5 faculties. And we make awards of degrees at degree level, master's level, and PhD level. So we have over 18,000 students on campus and approximately 2,500 staff, and that includes our academic, technical, and professional support staff. Across our campuses, we have 128 nationalities across our staff and student bodies. And in a recent survey, over 96% of our graduates were in employment. So that this year we are ranked number 23 in the world in the QS graduate employability rankings. We have reported under the UI Green metric rankings for many years now, and for the past 5 years, we have been ranked in the top 20 in this rankings, which we're very pleased with. So our DCU campuses. So our total campus area is about 128 acres. It's located in the north of Dublin city centre, so it's approximately halfway between the River Liffey, which is at the centre of the city, and the Dublin International Airport, which is to the north of the city. We have 3 academic campuses, Glasnevin, St. Patrick's, and All Hallows. We have an innovation campus, DCU Alpha, where we have many companies, innovative companies that are developing novel new technologies. And we have 2 sports campuses, St. Clair's close to the Glasnevin campus and the newly acquired Morton Athletic Stadium just north of the Glasnevin campus. All of the campuses are within a 3-kilometre radius of each other. We have over 80 individual buildings, which give us approximately 250,000 metres squared of space across our campuses. This space comes in different forms, so we are extremely privileged to have on our campuses some buildings of significant historic interest. Belvedere House, shown in this picture, was built in 1660 and was the home of Marmaduke Coghill, a judge and a member of parliament representing Dublin University in the late 1600s. So in about 1720, Mr. Coghill decided that he no longer wanted to reside in Belvedere House, and he built a new home just across the road on our All Hallows campus. So he built this spectacular, beautiful Georgian house and gardens, which is Drumcondra House on the All Hallows campus. And actually, I'm based on the All Hallows campus, and my office is on the 2nd floor of Drumcondra House. So as well as having the old, we have the new, and several of the buildings on the Glasnevin campus have been built in the last 20 years, many of them custom built to accommodate research facilities. And with these additional research facilities that have been grown over the last 20 years, we have seen a significant increase in the energy consumption from research, with research now accounting for approximately 30% of our total energy consumption across the university. And this will continue to be a future challenge as we try and continue to support further research, but also try and absolutely reduce our GHG and energy consumption across our campuses. So equally, we have got modern library facilities across campus, and in the pictures shown is the Cregan Library on the St. Pat's campus. And there's a growing trend and demand from the student body that there is greater access available to all of these facilities, and particularly at exam time. They are required to be open 24 hours a day to meet the demand for study spaces that are needed by the student body. So in addition to this as well, we have got a strong growth in the student numbers of the overall student number population, as in across Ireland, we see an additional 30 to 40,000 additional students expected to enter the education system in the coming years, which will put even further demands on a requirement for additional space across our campuses. So how did we do during COVID? So during COVID, there were significant impacts across the DCU system. So starting in March 2020, we pretty much went into complete lockdown, where all undergraduate programs were transferred online. All undergraduate students remained at home, and lecturers recorded or live broadcast their lectures via Zoom. The examination process was also changed to allow remote participation, and from a teaching perspective, this continued for pretty much the following 2 years. So semester 2, 21-22, so the earlier semester this year, so many of the programs return in part to campus, but only this month, as in September 2022, have we seen all programs now fully back on campus with face-to-face lectures. Now, much of the research activity, which was deemed essential during COVID, was continued on campus. So pretty much all of the research continued with significant health and safety measures in place. And in addition to that on campus, we also had several community-wide testing and vaccination centres, which led to, I guess, increased energy consumption on campus, even though we didn't have people on campus at the time. So during what's happening now, so during 2020 and 2021, new environmental legislation was developed and enacted by the Irish government. In 2021, the Climate Action and Low Carbon Development Bill was passed, and this established that Ireland would move to a climate resilient, biodiversity rich, environmentally sustainable and climate neutral economy no later than 2050. The National Climate Change Advisory Council was established and charged with identifying carbon budgets that would enable us to meet this trajectory. And these carbon budgets, now agreed by our government and in legislation, has an initial target of 51% absolute reduction in all greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. The budget has been divided across economic sectors, and individual institutions will have specific emission reduction targets. So we envisage that this will not be easy, but it will require transformational change for both our society and our economy if we are to meet these targets. So DCU undertakes a full carbon footprint to actually understand where our impacts are coming from. And so we followed the internationally agreed protocol, the GHG protocol, or methodology. And so we have set out our organizational boundaries based on financial control, and we do our best to capture our scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3 emissions. So under scope 1, we include our emissions from natural gas, which we use to heat all the spaces on campus, or pretty much all the spaces on campus. We include our DCU-owned vehicles. We have very few of them. We've only about 5 vehicles in total across campus, and the fugitive refrigerants. So these high global warming potential liquids or gases that we put into refrigerated units to to help and aid support cooling. We include in scope 2 our purchased electricity, and in scope 3 we include staff and student commuting, staff business travel, student academic travel, water, waste, and purchased goods and services. And so we use surveys to assess a lot of the staff and student commuting. We have a built-in system for calculating our emissions from our flights and business travel. And then we look at volume-based activity for water and waste, and purchased goods and services is based on a financial-based system, so a calculation of financial spend. So this is a graph of our total carbon footprints for DCU for 2018 to 2021, inclusive of scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3. So it's really clear to see that the scope 3 emissions are significantly greater than the scope 1 and scope 2 emissions. And I know scope 1 and scope 2 we can directly influence because they're the energy that we consume on campus. But we also have the ability to indirectly influence a lot of the scope 3 emissions through how we encourage people to come to and from campus, or the stuff that we actually procure on campus. So from the years from 2018 through to 2020, we can see the COVID dip. So we can see the dip in 2020, and we can see that in 2021, we're coming back again. This is a breakdown of those emissions across 2021. So we can see that our energy emissions, so our direct energy emissions of natural gas and purchased electricity in 2021 account for about 19%, whereas our staff and student travel accounts for 26%. Now, this is still a very COVID impacted year, so the data is somewhat skewed by it, but it's still in line with previous emission types, and we can see that purchased goods and services makes up to 45% of our emissions. So what are we doing in DCU? So we have compiled a climate action plan that lays down the actions that we're going to take to address the challenges. Our actions reflect our values as an institution to support and transform society, engaging and educating them on climate change, to protect the most vulnerable and to lead by example. And in an iterative plan, this climate action plan is an iterative plan that will need more actions added to it if we are to meet the challenges. So in conclusion, as we progress along the path post-COVID, we recognise that it is highly likely that the targets will only get more challenging and highly unlikely that there will be any derogations for higher education institutions. The techno solution and retrofit, so a techno solution like just changing our energy to renewable energy, will not be sufficient or may not be sufficient for us to meet sufficient GHG emission reduction targets. So we need to consider how to transform how we deliver education and research, where sustainability is not a standard, is a standard and not just a sticker. But more importantly, we need to defend the integrity of the science, and we must change our current business as usual models to meet the future challenge. Thank you very much.